Catching up with Sarah and Ginny, fueled by laughter and insights aplenty. Curiosity, connection, and learning that sticks. Real talk, real lives with practical tips. Welcome to Catching Up with Sarah and Ginny. Come on in.
Hello everyone, welcome to Catching Up with Sarah and Ginny, where we talk life, learning and moments that matter. It's all about the curiosity, connection and community. So we really hope to put some fun back into thinking about the classroom, thinking about education. And we like to say it's a bit like Gogglebox meets EHCPs. So we're kind of trying to just get that community and get that connection back in. So Ginny, hello, welcome. Lovely to see you. What have you been up to?
I love this idea of Gogglebox and EHCPs, and I think it's this. I think it's also this idea of actually in education, it's more than education. When we talk about things, we can in schools really compartmentalise and have, you know, you go into the staff room and it's about, you know, read, write, ink, or the music curriculum, and it's literally, whereas actually it's about what you've been watching on the telly. Actually, you know, where have you been shopping? Where are the bargains?
What's influencing at the moment? Yeah. What's making us kind of want to be, you know, to connect with other people, want to come into school, what making us think and get really motivated by something we're learning about that's maybe related to something that we are thinking about within our local community or within our friendship groups or whatever. Yeah. It's about bringing the human side back into stuff. I think that, very important.
I think it is, because we can get into the minutiae of education and lose ourselves.
Yeah, and it's about bringing it back to actually what matters. Why are we all in this? We're all in this because we want to make a difference to the lives of children and young people. We want to make it better. And the amount of times as a leader, I've said, you know, nobody's in this to make things worse for our young people. It's actually, we're all there trying to find a better solution, find something that works, but we're also trying to protect ourselves in terms of our workloads, in terms of our own ideas and values as well. And so we're trying to combine everything together. And the only way we can do that is to join up, is to kind of embrace what each other brings.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, hopefully, that this will be really what we're trying to do with this podcast, is to bring everyone's kind of strengths together, their differences together, what they bring to the table, and looking at how that makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think talking about what makes a difference, I'm going to tell you something that I've been up to and that has made a huge difference. Okay. The thing that has made a huge difference, the thing that I am sharing with everybody around me in education, is not to do with education, Sarah. It's to do with mould. It's to do with mould. Mould. It's to do with, if you have got in your shower that bit where the tiles meet the sealant and it goes mouldy, there is something you can get. You just put it on, leave it overnight, Sarah, comes back bright as bright. Oh gosh, that's a metaphor for us, isn't it, Sarah? Sometimes we need that. But you put this stuff on and you know when maybe you don't, but where it goes black mold, honestly, it is like revolutionary. And we're having a great discussion about this with educators, and people are going, that has changed my life. And I think, joking apart, you know, something like that, it kind of, it makes me feel cleaner.
It's one small change.
Yeah.
I think it's one small change. And actually, because it's also that really important things about the fact, I mean, I would know that, Ginny, because I notice everything. They did say years ago I should be a detective because I notice everything. And I wish I didn't. When I was a head teacher, I wish I didn't notice everything. Some things you don't want to notice. And actually, it's about knowing what people notice, but also being aware that everything has a solution. There is something that we can do that will change that.
And it's something that's quite simple when somebody goes, actually, this does work. So I've had this conversation with many people and they go, I've tried things, they don't work. And I'm like, no, you need this particular one and it will work. And then someone else says, do you know what? We've had this conversation, Ginny and I have, and actually it does work. So there is a kind of a kudos to it because in life we can, I don't know about you, but I can buy things that I think, oh, that's nice, you know, see things on the internet.
Sparkly things.
Sparkly things, and then we buy them and they don't make a difference. But I think it is about sharing those things that do make a difference. So, you know, mold. There you go, that's me. What about you?
And I like that. And well, I think that's a really important one as well. It's about knowing that there is something that'll make a difference. Yeah. I've had conversations recently with teachers working within schools, looking at actually how things are currently. And I've had a very similar conversation around things can change. How we have it now is not how it has to be. We can change things. And I think sometimes it's that permission to kind of like, we can get the stuff, which will take the mold off that. And then that will change how you see that situation or how you see that environment. And, you know, as a child, one of the things I did constantly was move my bedroom around. And even now, working, you know, self-employed, I've got my own office. I love moving things around. And I think it's that understanding that if we change what we see immediately outside of ourselves in terms of maybe moving furniture, changing the mold, doing something slightly differently, we can actually create a kind of cascading effect where everything begins to change. And as you said there, I think, Julie, it's really important that we can become very siloed. We can become very like, this is how we do this. And I think with everything, education is constantly changing and shifting. We have to be constantly changing and shifting, but not in a way that's putting extra pressure on us, but in a free way, in a way that we're allowed to do something different. And I think that's the kind of, so this week I've been doing quite a lot of support, rounding up the kind of some of the consultancy that I've been doing with different schools, looking at kind of as we plan for the next steps, how could we look at it a bit differently? What could we change, make slightly different? So that, because it doesn't have to be as it is now. Groupings don't have to stay the same. The way that we deliver that, the pedagogy that we use, the pedagogical approach that we use, we've got so many things changing around us. Technology is kind of, the advances are incredible. And we just need to look at what other ways might we be able to add a bit of flex to that. And actually, Jenny, on that, I walked into one of my local, I live in Cornwall, my local little seaside shops. And when I walked in, I had this amazing smell. And they've got this scent. It's called Innis, actually. There we go. I've got that there. Oh. And they had just the stand, and it was in this little burner. Oh, actually, it was on the shelves. And I walked in, and I was like, I love that smell. And the lady said, oh, yeah, this is what and you buy these little shells, drip them on, and you can put them anywhere. I bought it. I now have it in my office. When I walk into my office, the pleasure I have from just having that smell. And you forget, so the mold, it's that visual thing, the thing you can see, which kind of is a bit irritating, but also it's that kind of the opportunity to change how you feel about a space when you walk into it because of a different smell. And actually how we are very sensory beings. There's so much discussion around our learners being hugely, sensory kind of differences, but also being excited or over kind of or calmed by their sensory experiences. We need to investigate that a little bit more and look at actually what can we do to just bring that change. So that's my kind of thing for the week was I hadn't quite realised, I know, but what a sensory being I am.
And I think that links into it does link into my wow moment, which is fascinating because I am just the same as you, Sarah. The fact that smells are so important to me. So the perfume I wear Jo Malone, and people kind of know it's me because that is my perfume. But my wow moment was really interestingly sorting out my office and putting a diffuser into my office, and that gives me a wow every time I walk in because also it's where it's placed. So my wow, and I think it's kind of this actually, it's not a call to action, but saying to people, actually, have you acknowledged what senses that you do like, And actually, are you surrounding yourself with them? So I have, at my office at home, I have a diffuser. And then I also have, and it does give me a wow moment, I have a candle. And when I'm doing something really tricky, I light, sounds the special cat, but I light the candle, and the candle, it does, honestly, Sarah, it calms me down. So it's a kind of calming wow.
And Ginny, you know, there's a reason why when you go into a church and you light a candle, you know, and there's all of that stuff around it all. It's that kind of ceremony of it all. It's all those kind of bringing your focus into one thing. Obviously tricky in the classroom with the candle. But I think that's a really, really important Pookie Knightsmith has a wonderful audit that you can kind of do around the sort of sensory thinking around when you walk into a space. What do you see? What do you feel? What kind of, what does it make you feel? And actually sometimes with our learners, you know, looking at when things are maybe more challenging, but also when they're not more challenging, what is it that makes you feel better about learning within this space or about connecting within this space? I think it's a really, really important aspect. Wow moment for me is I've had the chance this week to work with I get a great kind of role of being able to work with lots of different companies and look at different products and different things that might support in the classroom. Because for me, one of the great things is when I go out to train is to say, this is something I found really useful. This is really something that might be good for your learners. And I've been looking into touch typing because I just, one of those things as we move forward with technology, the importance of making sure that we, for those learners that may be writing and handwriting, it's more challenging, but also as a skill for all of our young people, being able to touch type, it's hugely important. And so I've been looking at a few programs. So my wow moment has been, I'm 54. I thought that touch typing was going to be something that has gone out of my kind of skill set. You know, it's not, I've never learned to do it, and I thought it wouldn't be something I'd be able to. And I've just started to teach myself through this program that is incredible. It's great. And I'm starting to touch type. And I think it's that, and the company is called CAS, but the guy that I was working with, he said I call it think typing. Because actually, once you take the mechanics of the actual process of typing, a bit like the mechanics of writing, or they speak about in the writing framework, once you take away that cognitive kind of load of the mechanics of doing something and it becomes a bit more automatic, you free up processing space for thinking. And I was like, wow, 54. There we go, Ginny. So that's my kind of wow moment there.
And I think
that brings us on.
Go on.
Go on.
No, I just think this idea of opening our minds as educators to learning new things. Someone said to me a few years ago, we are asking children to do things that are out of their comfort zones on a daily basis. Yeah. You know, we may say, actually, here's a picture of a Viking boat. Off you go and paint it. And they're like, I'm not doing that. And actually, we need to think like the children and then go, actually, I want them to be brave. I want them to take a chance, you know, with this idea of touch typing. And it's having the saying, actually, I'm going to buy into this, isn't it? When I was 27, I decided to learn the piano. And I don't still play the piano, but it was really hard for me, Sarah. And I think it's good to put ourselves through things that are tricky because we are asking children to do that all the time. Interestingly, about 10 years ago, I taught myself to touch type with a child's touch typing program. It was a Disney one. And actually it was like, right, I'm going to practice every day and I'm going to do what they say. You know, and now not amazingly, but now I can touch type. And I think the thing with the touch typing is it will help us in the long run. I think it's also about that. Yeah. I've got this huge thing about technology and Senkos at the moment that I could talk about for hours, but actually sometimes we need to invest the time to understand the technology so that then we can save the time in the long run. And it's a real kind of
Well, you have
juggle.
to. It's the chicken and the egg. But it's also the chicken and the egg. If you don't actually spend the time, and then also you have to invest the time at the beginning in upskilling, but then you also have to invest the time in setting a structure in place where, you know, the things are always maintained, the skills are always developed for Senkos and for the staff, and how we're going to cascade that down to the rest of the staff, to the learners. You know, we're going to have a digital champions model. What are we going to do? Also with the equipment. How is that going to be ensured it's going to be working? What happens when apps stop working, or when the license, you know, have we got a system in place for all of those things to be automatically picked up and not again become another job? That's a whole other topic that I think we'll have to do on another program. So Ginny, coming into kind of thinking around if Send was a song.
Oh,
have you I've had quite a lot of thoughts around this kind of recently, and just in my head currently I've got Pharrell Williams Happy, and I think sometimes when we're looking at the songs, and I think lots of the people we've spoken to, we often look at challenges around if Send was a song, and actually I think it's about also remembering the joy and the fun. And the bringing that all back into the learning, and so I was every time I hear it is my ringtone as well, Pharrell Williams and Happy. It makes me feel a bit happy, and again it's that jolt that we need sometimes with our senses. It's not just what we smell, it's not just what we see, it's what we hear as well. And so that the joy of music and how we can get music to lift the mood of the room, lift the mood of everyone. So kind of that was, for me, that's my kind of if Send was a song for this episode.
So that's
anything
really interesting.
From you, Jenny?
Because what's come into my mind is All Together Now. I think it's by The Farm. I didn't realise the lyrics till quite recently. And then once again, I just go around, as you can imagine, saying to people, have you heard the lyrics? Have you heard the lyrics? Because it's about the war and about All Together Now in No Man's Land. And I think the different agencies, the different people supporting children with additional needs, it's about being in that, it's sending shivers down me as I talk about it, but it's about being in that space together and actually being able to have those conversations together as one, because together, parents, outside agents, the children in the middle of it all, staff, we are stronger and we can make more of a difference if we are all together in that middle ground.
And we have to be all together. I think that's something as well, recently kind of looking at some of the, I'm getting increasingly contacted by families, individual families, and I kind of haven't got capacity to support, but it's really, what you want to say is go back to your Senko, go back to your school, and actually let's get back together, because it's increasingly becoming individualized. So we need to think about that and look at, and I love that. Both songs fantastic. I'm loving both of those. So Ginny, we're going to kind of draw things to a close, thinking around what about key takeaways, what would we have? So just looking at, what would your key takeaway from this be?
My key takeaway, I think, is about it's about connection, as always, about everything doesn't have to be about school and education. It needs to be broader than that, so that we have the connections with one another.
Yeah. And I think on that, what we have to do in order to, my key takeaway with that would be that you have to actually build those connections into your framework. So actually you structure time to be all together. You structure time for happy moments. So when you're planning and looking forward, you have to think, okay, well, where are there opportunities for connections to be formed? Where are there opportunities for us to work together, to solve things together, but also to maybe have time to look at our environments, to look at those things and maybe talk together about those things that might be creating barriers. All of those things I think are so, so important. And I mean, I just think we could talk about all of this forever, Ginny, but it's a pleasure to
another
talk.
Day. Another day, Sarah.
Another day.
Well, as we say, it's always a pleasure, never a chore to have a chat with you, Sarah. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ginny. And I look forward to the next episode. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Back in the summer, I caught up with Rob Jennings and we talked all things dyscalculia. Hello, Rob. Wonderful to have you here. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invite.
So we've just got a few little questions to try and lightheartedly find out about some of the work that you're doing at the moment, some of the hot topics, and really just enable people to get a greater awareness of some of the issues that they may be struggling with at the moment and what support's out there. So before we get started, how did we meet, Rob? Shall I leave it to you?
Yeah, I think we met at the neurodiversity show, which is probably a couple of years ago now, at the NEC in Birmingham. I think it was called the Dyscalculia and Dyslexia show at the time.
It was
in that format.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I think you helped me carry my bag.
Probably.
Yeah. At
That's
the end.
sort of.
That's the kind of gent that you are, and gave me an amazing pencil for my.
Yeah, they're great, those pencils.
Yeah.
They really do support that kind of like help with handwriting and stuff.
Yeah. So, wonderful. Okay, so in terms of your work currently and the things which maybe are lighting you up or are kind of the hot topics, is there anything you want to share with us?
So timing is perfect as always. So my book comes out on the 21st of July.
Wow, brilliant.
And it's called The Maths and Dyscalculia Assessment.
Oh, wow.
And it's a series of tests and it's kind of an error analysis, so you can see kind of what's going wrong, but it helps you to sort of work out where to start a teaching intervention. So it's not a diagnosis thing, it's more of a case that's going to help what comes next. And it's that sort of teaching intervention, where to start, where things are starting to go wrong. So
brilliant.
It's quite timely.
And in terms of kind of thinking about things which you're being asked about a lot, or because I know that we're both at a conference coming up, and so what's the sort of what's getting people asking you to do currently?
Well, I think kind of there's still a lack of awareness of what dyscalculia is and how it sort of shows itself in the classroom, but it's also to do with how we can sort of help and provide the support and strategies in the class, because being a specialist maths teacher is different from being a maths tutor. You know, you have to sort of peel right back and look at some of the basic foundational aspects of maths to help.
And I think that's really very similar, isn't it, in terms of when we're talking about dyslexia and actually
Absolutely.
Very little understanding about, there are the same issues around those foundation bits of knowledge that we need to have in place. And actually, where do we start?
Yeah.
And we start initially finding out what the difficulties are and what the barriers are in place.
That's kind of why we wrote the book in the first place, is to sort of identify where things are starting to go wrong. And it's like a test for people that are teachers and people that are involved in maths education that can really help with that. You don't have to be, it's an open test, and it's really simply designed so it makes it easy to be used by people that are involved.
Okay, wonderful. And how would you describe yourself in terms of the work that you do, Rob? Because I've realised at the beginning I didn't say that. So give yourself a little.
I'm very lucky actually, because I'm relatively new to teaching. I've only done about, it feels like 150 years, but I've only been teaching for about sort of 12 years. I used to work in the music industry before that, so I feel that I come with a fresh look at how the teaching profession. So I'm not a lifer as such, but I really enjoy it. I'm really passionate about raising awareness and sort of providing support for people that struggle. You know, people ask me, why don't you just teach maths generally? And I say to them, no, I really enjoy working with people that struggle. I think that's much more sort of powerful and beneficial to people. And for me, I love it.
Yeah, wonderful. And of course, being previously from the music industry, if I asked you this question, if Send were a song, what song do you think it might be?
Well, I've always been a huge Crowded House fan for a long time. And I think they have many songs, but the one I particularly like is Four Seasons in One Day. I think working in Send for this amount of time, you just never know what you're going to get. Sounds like a Forrest Gump box of chocolates pun. But you just never know what you're going to get. It's the volatility of what you have when you come into school or you work with an individual. You just get different on different days. And I think you have to be that sort of flexible and adaptable to be able to support our learners that really struggle.
And I think that's a really good one as well. It's about being ready and prepared for all weather, so it's all seasons. And
Yeah.
and I think that's really true. It's that toolbox of approaches.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
absolutely key.
I think the key, absolutely. I think the key is one size doesn't fit all, and you have to be that adaptable and flexible to be able to work with people. What works for some people doesn't necessarily work for other people.
And what might work one day doesn't necessarily work
The next thing, yeah.
or in that day. So having those strategies, wonderful. Thank you, Rob, for that. And so in terms of the last few weeks or this week, a wow moment. Have you got anything particularly that you felt has been like, oh wow, that's really interesting, or that went really well, or anything?
Well, it's kind of like the end of term time, and I got this lovely card from a student that was nobody could teach, and they just sent me this little card saying how wonderful it's been this term where we started working together, and I think kind of that sort of is just brought a little tear to the eye. But it's just important that people, you can't give up on anybody.
No.
There's always going to be a kind of a way to do it, and it takes time. It really does take time. You can't rush these things in terms of people's development. And I think kind of that just reminded me of that sort of the patience and how hard it is sometimes to sort of work with people and how exhausting it is. So yeah, that was my well moment.
And I think that's wonderful because again, it's that also I'm constantly saying that within schools in terms of what, how can you measure that impact in terms of what differences it made to that learner? Let's get some people voice. Let's get some kind of celebrating for them as well, so they can see, because it is hard when you struggle with something. Maths, English, it's hard.
Yeah, this particular learner was a refusenik. He refused to sort of have anybody sort of help him, and so just to sort of turn that corner, it's really quite significant, not just for me, but or for him, it's for all of the teaching staff that were involved in his education.
And seeing that, for them to see that as well, that actually there was something which would make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is that thing. Don't give up. Just keep doing it. Keep on trying. Wonderful, Rob, for that. And in terms of a key takeaway for people, so things that you feel, obviously you've really raised the profile in terms of dyscalculia, which I couldn't say that word at all.
No, that was pretty good.
I have practiced. Okay, that was a real practice, and I've got it written down in front of me. But it's the network. You've started that, and you've
no, it's been fantastic. What I would say as a general thing that I hope will change is that people's perception of maths changes. How often have we heard, "Oh, I've never been good at maths." He probably gets, or she probably gets that from me in parent meetings. We would never say that about literature. "Oh, I've never been able to read." So we have to sort of don't accept being bad at maths is set, and you can change that, and you can get better with the right teaching and the right intervention.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Wow, Rob, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, and it's been great to find out some of that information as well. And I hope to see you soon, which I will do at the next conference.
We'll do the next conference.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Rob. That's
all
wonderful.
right. Take care.
Thanks for joining us this time on Catching Up with Sarah and Ginny.
Always a pleasure and never a chore.